All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to episode 145 of Convos on the Pedicab. Our camera guy had some traffic problems and some car problems, so we couldn't really make it to record. But my buddy Clint Rarey, he already came all the way out here from Gatesville, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came out here over an hour away because he was in Austin, so we figured we were going to do a little improv and still make an episode regardless. The sound quality might not be as good as well as the visual quality, but we're still going to do this. We're still going to talk. Clint's been doing a lot of big things. I really appreciate him coming to talk to me, so we're going to do this episode. We do apologize in advance if the quality is not up to par with other episodes, but hopefully you guys enjoy the content and enjoy what we talk about. Anyway, you no longer live in Austin, right?
No, we moved in July.
Okay, you moved in July. You ran as a city council member.
Correct. Lost to a socialist.
Well, who's in a mental hospital right now, isn't she? Or is she out? Or is
she ran out of vacation days and sick days, so she didn't like going to work, so she had to take a mental health break because she saw Linda Hidalgo in Houston do the same thing. So they take these vacations because people criticize them and they don't like it.
Well, democracy, right, Clint? It's democracy. But anyway, you're out in Gatesville. Are you in Gatesville or are you a little bit?
Oh, we're west of Gatesville.
Okay. For argument's sake, you're in Gatesville. Nobody needs to know exactly where you're at. But you're in Gatesville. You have a little family farm. It's called Fuck Around and Find Out Farms, right? FAFO, FAFO Farms.
It's when the adults are in the room, when kids are around, it's fool around and find out. We want to keep it PG-13 when kids are around.
Okay. We have Fool Around and Find Out Farms. And you've been doing a lot of really cool stuff. You guys have, what do you tell us about the farm?
So right now we're starting a regenerative farm, and so we have chickens for our pastured poultry. We actually just switched over from the Cornish crosses to the Freedom Rangers. The Cornish crosses take about 8 weeks to raise from day one to slaughter. But since the federal government decided they wanted to start vaccinating the mRNA into the Cornish crosses, we decided to stop buying that breed because you can't breed them yourselves. There's a patent on them. They're basically government birds, and those are all the chicken that you buy in grocery stores. So if you like to eat mRNA vaccines, buy up the chickens at HEV because that's what you're going to get with the Cornish.
So let me ask you a question. If you were to buy a vaccinated chicken from HEV, are you going to get like mRNA alterations to your genetic code from eating the chicken, or is it just you're going to get a shittier quality of meat because they're infected with mRNA technology?
I think it's going to be a shittier quality of meat. I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to go make these claims about what it's going to do to.
Like you're not going to just start. You're not going to get like a climate change induced heart attack because you ate the Pfizer chicken, right? Like that's.
I don't
think so. Okay,
No.
I think a lot of people are scared, and there's a lot of misinformation about stuff, and people are a little paranoid. And I understand why people are paranoid, but sometimes you let paranoia run rampant, and then it becomes counterproductive, and you don't deal with what's happening with a series of clarity. And I think in order to survive and thrive in this environment, because I think this environment is actually like, it's horrifying, but there's also a lot of opportunity in this environment to like grow beyond your wildest dreams. Because anytime there is a new world order, right? And you had one after World War II, you had one when we started industrializing, you've had one in the Enlightenment, and et cetera, et cetera. Every time that type of stuff happens, there's always an opportunity for people to drastically improve their position and quality of life. Just like there's also an opportunity for people's quality of life to get drastically worse. And that's why it's very important, I think, have a clear head about what's going on, have open-ended discussions, and have these in a way where even if you disagree on stuff, you're able to be calm and measured and talk about why somebody feels a certain way about an issue.
Correct.
So that's kind of why I wanted to ask about the food. But what about like cows? Like, because right now, one of the things that I've like been concerned about is you have people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and just the whole, gallery of billionaires and their friends who go to Davos every year that have kind of openly talked about eating insects as a way to, eat more sustainably and fight climate change and whatever it is. And obviously that's not what it's about. It's just a way to mask inflation. Just like the way we've been eating meat in general has been adjusted to mask inflation. But with that being said, one of the things I've always been worried about is like, and this is just recent, like if I go to a restaurant or if I go to a food truck, and I buy a hamburger, how do I know that they already aren't using like crickets and insects and all types of stuff to make the burger because of how crazy the FDA rules are in terms of what classifies as meat or, grass-fed or any of that stuff?
You'll never know if you're buying from a gut truck or a food truck, unless the people are honest with you and they provide where they're actually getting their meat from.
They might not know.
And
they might not know. They could just say, hey, we're getting meat from this person, this distributor. This distributor might just be getting, like their meat there might be a whole bucket of crickets, right? And there might be a little bit of, they might use one cow and splice one cow and distribute that amongst a whole farm of crickets. And then they'll say it's meat because there's a certain percentage of meat that's in the...
That's how they get away with a lot of things when it comes to marketing their foods in stores, is they'll use a type of terminology to get away with marketing as organic, but it's not really organic. And so you really don't know where your food's coming from. For example, because we're in the process of trying to become a grade A dairy so we could sell raw milk as a retailer.
Yeah.
And so we've been talking to other dairy farmers, and one of the dairy farmers that we spoke to, she said, yeah, well, we actually sell our milk to a main distributor. And so this main distributor doesn't even actually produce their own milk. They buy from dozens and dozens of different farms. So not every farm is going to be raising their cows or treating their cows the same way.
But your friend is, but that distributor that bought the milk from your friend also buys stuff from God knows who, and they'll call their stuff organic because they are using some organic milk in their milk.
Correct.
Or they'll say it's grass fed, and it's like, okay, cool, yeah, the cow could have been eating grass once. It could have ate grass once before it goes into a slaughterhouse, and then it got fed grain.
Well, I mean, a lot of people think they get misled with seeing grass fed, and they're like, oh, well, they're out on the pasture eating grass. Well, they could be grass fed and be stuck in a pen and not being able to move or be in sunlight their whole life just to fatten them up. So you want to make sure that it's not just grass fed, that it's pasture raised, that that animal actually has free range to do what they need to do to live a healthy life.
What about the certified humane label? Is that something to be taken seriously, or is that kind of like another...
It's a slippery slope. I'm still looking into it and understanding that on how you qualify to put that on your label. So there's a lot of things when it comes to starting a farm that we're still learning. So I'm not really going to speak onto that because I'm not really too informed on that subject. But so we got our grade A dairy that we're starting. We got our pastured poultry. We also have goats that we make goat milk soap. We have raw goat milk, and then we're going to be making skin moisturizer out of goat milk as well. And so as a regenerative farm, we don't use any herbicides or pesticides on our farm. We also don't use any soy or GMO byproducts, because the last thing you want to do is have this animal be inflamed their whole life because they're just eating stuff that they're not supposed to be eating. Especially, you don't want to have a lot of soy in the animals that you eat, because we don't, as human beings, we shouldn't be eating soy. Especially men, we want to have high testosterone. We don't want to be soy boys walking around.
What are the negative harm effects of eating soy as a man?
Well, lower testosterone is one. But that's pretty much all I know of that part, because I'm still looking into that too. I've only been a farmer for now since August.
What about women? Does it have an effect on women if they're eating soy in their diet?
It could. I've heard it has issues with reproductive, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that.
Okay. All right. So what's it been like operating a small farm?
So someone decided they wanted to report us to the Texas Health Department regarding our raw milk, because you have to be licensed to sell raw milk as a retailer. But as of 2020, Texas allows herd shares, which means someone can sign up and they pay whatever fee that we decide to charge. If it's $10, $25 a month, that money goes towards feeding the animal, and they get the byproduct of that animal. Biggest one is for herd share is buying the beef. So people say you have 5 people invest into that one cow, they split that cow up evenly 5 ways. That's a herd share. So you don't have to go to a slaughterhouse and do all that.
All right, that kind of makes sense. And so how is this thing going? Like they filed a report against you for raw milk.
Yeah. So
right.
Which
is also ridiculous, because based on everything else that we were talking about in terms of what goes in your food, this is what the health and, this is what the Department of Health is concerned with. They're not concerned with companies like Tyson's Chicken putting all types of GMOs and mystery meat in their products, but they'll go after a small farmer for using raw milk.
It's just funny that raw milk is illegal, but we have people selling fentanyl on our streets and they don't get arrested for that. Raw milk heals your gut. Raw milk heals ailments like asthma and eczema. So it helps people. It cures certain things in people because it has all the vitamins and nutrients that you need in it, versus when you pasteurize milk, you kill everything in that milk. So now you're just drinking junk milk.
Okay. What are the dangers though of raw milk? Because they are giving you reasons and listing causes and risks for drinking raw milk. What is their rationale?
I mean, there's listings and warnings on every type of food that you eat. I mean, they put when there are peanut allergies, even though there may not be peanuts in it. So it's just a scare tactic to get people to not drink raw milk. It does have a shorter shelf life than pasteurized milk.
Okay.
Because when you pasteurize it, you cook it to 210 degrees and you kill all the enzymes in the milk, which allows it to last longer. And that's why we had pasteurized milk come to fruition with our government, because when we were doing factory farming, raw milk was spoiling really bad, really quickly. And people were getting sick and people were actually dying.
Okay, so the consequence of drinking spoiled milk can have really bad health effects and kill you. And if you're buying raw milk, you run the risk of the milk spoiling faster, and you could, by accident, drink spoiled milk. And that's what the risk that they're trying to mitigate is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, pasteurized milk lasts about 30 days when you buy it from the grocery store. I don't know how long it's been sitting on that shelf.
Dude, I would not want to drink milk that's been in the fridge for 30 days.
Most people don't.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting. Plus, a lot of the nutrition a lot of just the actual nutrition that's in the milk gets taken away when you do that.
Yep.
And then what are you consuming? Empty calories?
It's empty calories.
I mean, there's still protein, right? But it's
very, very minuscule.
They say that there's 7 grams of protein in a glass of milk.
There's about 7 grams of raw milk, not in pasteurized milk.
Really? Because I look at the ingredients and it still says that.
Yeah, it says that, but it's not true.
You don't think it's true? So there's are they allowed to lie to you about I know there's a lot of gray area in terms of what they can disclose and what they have to disclose, but are they legally able to lie to you about the amount of protein or carbs that's in a product?
So they do samples of the milk.
Okay.
So that sample that they took may be what that label is based off of. But if you're not consistently feeding the cows the minerals that they need, because you can put them on pasture, but they're still going to need minerals to produce healthy milk.
Yeah.
And so going off the label is not necessarily what the cow's producing, because it was off a previous test.
Could you explain that like I wore a mask alone in my car?
So the label that you see on cow's milk, the pasteurized milk in the grocery store, it's from a sample that they sent into a lab to get back on what minerals and nutritional facts are in that sample.
Oh, and they used a sample that gets sent to the to the lab from a healthy cow to then write the nutritional facts on the milk carton.
Yeah, and we would do the same thing as a raw milk, because you got to get your
but the nutrients stay, but the nutrients are actually what they tell you, because you don't really change the product.
We also don't have thousands of cows, and you may not be tracking if all the cows are getting all the minerals that they need, versus we have one cow right now,
and they could use one cow and say this is a blanket statement for every cow. Okay, I kind of get this. Yeah, no, I understand why there's a war on raw milk, because if raw milk is the better quality of milk, and large factory farms, and there's a demand to get raw milk from large factory farms, well, A, they got to jack their prices up because they have to worry about things spoiling, right? And B, because they're jacking the prices up, they no longer are able to dominate the smaller farms. And so a lot of the big factory farms lose a lot of money. If raw milk is acceptable to drink, A, people aren't going to be buying the milk from HEB, right? And they'll lose money from that. And B, the factory farm doesn't have the ability to produce raw milk the same way as a smaller farmer would, because they just have too many cows.
Yeah, the quality goes down.
Yeah, they just have too many cows. And so it's actually very anti-competitive to be against raw milk.
And the thing that most
If that makes sense, right?
You know, it does make sense. And jumping on top of that, piggybacking that, most people don't know Proposition 1 for the state of Texas that just passed and is now going to go into our Constitution for Texas. It was supposed to be farmers and ranchers' rights.
Okay.
But most people don't know the wording is so vague that it doesn't just protect small farmers, it protects these factory farms. So they can get away with a lot more stuff now with this constitutional right.
What is it? Tell me about what happened with that. Because honestly, I didn't even vote this Tuesday because I'm so burned out from all the bullshit that I just didn't fucking vote.
So I'm learning more about it because
Okay.
I actually voted for it because how it was worded.
Oh, you messed up.
I messed up.
All right.
I thought it was going to protect me, but now it's protecting factory farms.
How? Can you tell me what?
It gives them more protection from cities and the state when it comes to changing zoning laws and all these other things that would impact their lands and how they farm on their property.
Okay.
And so now they can get away with a lot more stuff where we're supposed to protect small farmers and not these factory farmers.
But are small farmers still protected?
Yes.
Okay, but now the factory farmers get more protected. They get the same protection as the small farmers.
More protection, less liability on their end.
Well, that's not the end of the world. I mean, if I choose to, buy my beef from you hypothetically or KNC cattle, what's the problem? Like, what does it matter?
Well, we want to get these factory farms that are doing things bad with their food that's causing us to get sick to correct themselves.
Right, because there are large societal implications of eating fake food.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, okay, so the majority of farmers are ruled by Monsanto because all the pesticides and herbicides that farms use is from Monsanto. And Monsanto also owns Bayer. And Bayer treats has medicine for a lot of the ailments that the food that we eat that has all of the poisons in it to get us sick. So that now they cause you to get sick and then they come in with the medicine to treat you. So they're profiting twice.
Yes, and a lot of people who are on the FDA were members of Monsanto. Were board members of Monsanto at one point. There's a revolving door between being a Monsanto board member and being on the FDA.
Correct.
And our buddy Donald Trump put a whole bunch of those guys on the FDA.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's because he's fighting the globalists, and this is 5D chess to expose the cabal of the agriculture, of big ag.
Yeah.
Donald Trump did this because he knows that the globalists want you eating bugs, and that was his way of exposing them.
Well, talk about eating bugs. I don't know if you saw Tyson Foods partnered with the largest bug manufacturer.
Dude, I saw that. It's fucking crazy.
And so in their quote on their website, it says, at this time, we are not looking at creating bug meat. So at this time, it didn't say we will not. So they do plan on creating and replacing chicken and beef with bug meat.
They're not creating bug meat, but they'll start putting insects in the factories to mix it with the beef.
Yeah.
It's like Soylent Green. I didn't think Soylent Green was going to be a how-to guide, right?
Well, I mean,
I didn't think Soylent Green was going to be a manual.
Most people don't realize too, like McDonald's, I think it was like 20 or 30 years ago, there was an investigation because someone actually was testing their burger patties and they were finding fecal matter and human DNA in their burger patties. And so you can go Google that and look it up, and there was a whole scandal on it. It was
well, I mean, I've seen like What the Health and a whole bunch of other. There was another movie, I can't remember it, but it was a movie back in like Food Inc. It was Food Inc. back on Netflix. It actually used to be good.
Yeah. Before they went woke.
Yeah. Well, yes, before they went woke, and they talked about how like in these giant factory cages, like the cows are like covered in their own shit and stuff like that, and some of the cow shit is like interspliced with some of the burgers that you eat, and that's why a lot of meat sometimes gets recalled because of salmonella and all types of other things that are happening.
Same with the chicken. Chicken literally, so at these farms where they process them, they have these giant vats because as soon as you process a chicken, you stick it in a vat of chilled ice water, and so the bottom 30% of that water is all fecal matter.
Of where? Of what?
Of shit.
Well, no, but what's in the vat? What else is in the vat? Like
It's
the
just
meat
water
or
and ice.
why is and what goes in the vat?
So you stick them in there.
The meat, the chickens, the cow.
You stick the chickens in there, and so the reason why there's so much fecal matter in that vat is because they don't properly clean the chicken out before they stick it in the water to soak, because you let them soak and chill to let the rigor mortis go down. And then you let them refrigerate them for 24 hours.
This is why people are going vegan.
This is why a lot of people went vegan, because of the factory farming.
Yeah.
And I'm against it, but I would never go vegan. It's like, okay, let's just process our animals humanely. Let's do it right. Let's make sure everything's taken care of. But once you get to these large-scale industrial facilities, that's when things get unhealthier, because there's no checks and balances in maintaining the proper procedure.
Well, and also the standards for what was acceptable for processing food started to change right when we went off the gold standard, because they knew that everything was going to get extremely expensive. And so they had to degrade the quality of the food to mask inflation, because if they didn't do that, you have to understand, people had a lot more testosterone. People had believed in American values a lot more back in the 1960s. There was insane amounts of civil unrest as a result of Vietnam and the hippie movement and MLK and all this other stuff. You know, if people had started to see what inflation was really like once you went off gold in conjunction with all of these things, you could have had like a full-scale revolt. And so they just decided, hey man, we're gonna just change the way we farm. We have a lot, you know, there was a monopoly in terms of the flow of information, so people didn't realize or understand, and the people who brought this up were looked at as kooks and lunatics. And so a lot of the way we farm and produce food it's a byproduct of going off the gold standard and debasing the currency, because when you debase currency, you debase everything else. Like that's a scientific fact. Yeah. And now you're seeing like the culmination of that with all the trans kids and like, you know, the crazy amount of wokeness that's happening in the schools.
It's all around the food that they eat.
It's everything, and it's not. And conservatives make the mistakes by like yelling and attacking and being reactionary towards this stuff, without understanding the cause. And the cause is a degradation of it's a degradation of value, of what is considered valuable, which is money. And when that happens, everything else has to degrade by default, because if it doesn't, you get an insane amount of civil unrest, and the people who are going to benefit the most from a fiat standard were not able to handle the unrest that was going to occur. So, you know, if I were in that position, I would want to degrade the food and degrade culture and start destabilizing families and do it in a way that's as stealth as possible, right?
I mean, look back at even in the 70s and 80s, people were super healthy still.
Because the effects of that still hadn't materialized.
Yeah, because they just started in the 60s, and they took until about the 90s where you started seeing obesity really climb up. And then with obesity and people being unhealthy, they started getting depressed and anxious, and then they started to shift towards SSRIs, and then now you're creating a mentally ill society by putting them on SSRIs, because if we look at every mass shooter, they were all on SSRIs. And so now you throw in social media on top of that, and you get people into an echo chamber, and it just creates a sick, demented society that we're in right now.
With no foundation. And then when you're looking at social media and everything you do becomes for clicks, you literally, I'm not like a religious person, but I had this guy named Nick Napoleon, a MAGA rapper, and we were talking about like Satanism in the movies and the music industry, and he said that Satanism is like the worship of self, right? And like there's no greater form of self-worship than being addicted, than having your life, than living your life according to Twitter and Instagram metrics.
100%.
And this is weird saying this, because I'm doing things, you know, which is generating a lot of clicks and engagement on social media. But you know, understanding that perspective makes me, I guess it's allowing me to, thank God, still have my mental health and still be able to look at things from a sense of clarity. Because ultimately, like, you know, when it comes to making stuff, you got to do it because you genuinely believe in what you're doing, and you're doing it for a cause that's bigger than yourself. And you know, you still have to have a foundation in life where you're happy with how your life is going, independently of anything else, in order to even navigate through that.
There's a difference between doing things for clicks for yourself or doing things for clicks to bring an awareness. And for me personally, from the content that I've watched over the last couple of years from you, yours is always about bringing awareness of what's going on and making a mockery of that. And I love the satire comedy that you bring to it, because we need to bring humor back, because humor is dying.
And humor
society.
exposes people for who they are. And there are going to be people who are always going to say, you're doing this for clicks, you're only doing this for attention on social media, and that'll never go away. And a lot of times people will say that because A, what you're doing is you're actually it means that you're actually effective in making their narratives look stupid, right? Or B, they'll say this because you don't see value in engaging with them, and so they'll lash out at you to bring you down to their level.
Yep.
That's what I think it is. But you see the debates?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, what do you like about it?
Vivek just destroyed everybody. Like
He's a really good talker.
He's a great talker. He put the RNC chair on blast. He tore DeSantis. He tore.
You think so?
Haley part.
I don't think he did anything bad. I think DeSantis was fine, but he made Haley look. He ripped Nikki Haley to shreds.
So if you actually, he said the 3-inch hail thing, whenever another McCain had 3-inch hails. If you go back to his personal account, he shares that video and he says there's 2 McCains on stage.
Okay, but that's not the end of the world. Like
No.
DeSantis, I think DeSantis handled himself fine in this debate.
DeSantis handled himself fine, but he really just needs to come to grips that he's not 5'10". He needs just to acknowledge that.
We're talking about shoes.
Yeah, he's not.
That's so fucking stupid, though. That's so silly that like we got like rampant inflation, mass social degradation, a porous border. We're on the verge of World War III. You got Sprinkles, a drag queen, reading stories to your 5-year-olds. A bunch of people got a bunch of people got these heart problems from the clot shot that they were forced to get. You have insane amounts of social media censorship. You have the obvious politicization of the Justice Department. And like we're talking about shoes. It's ridiculous. Like we deserve to lose. Like we deserve the new world order, and we deserve to eat bugs and live in a pod and have a social credit score. If with all this stuff that's happening, if we're talking about shoes, bro, we deserve to be pod mates in mega city number 57.
Now my only issue with DeSantis,
it is funny though, but
my only issue with DeSantis is when he used the AI images on one of his advertisements.
Oh yeah, just immediate disqualification.
Yeah,
immediate. We need the guy. We need the guy who campaigned for Ronna McDaniel and goes on stage with Lindsey Graham instead. He's the guy that's really. That's the guy who's gonna save America. Oh man, that's the guy. That's the guy that's gonna save America, Clint.
Who, Trump?
Yeah, that guy.
No.
That guy.
No, he sold us out. He sold us out to Big Pharma, and he won't accept. Even if he was fooled, he's egotistical that he won't even acknowledge that he was duped.
And if he was duped, it's like you wanted I wasn't duped. How is the president duped? Like, I trust you to like help fight back against an army of unelected globalists that are trying to destroy the sovereignty of the United States. If you got duped by that, how am I going to trust you? Like, how am I going to put my faith in you to like do anything as an elected official aside from maybe make my stock portfolio go up?
Then he's listening to Bill Gates at the time about not investigating vaccines, and
he promised RFK Jr. a vaccine safety commission chair and then rescinded that and gave it to Scott Gottlieb instead for like public health.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm not voting for Trump unless it's up against Biden.
Still? I'm voting for Kennedy, dude. I don't care.
I'm voting for Vivek, but he's not going to win.
You like Vivek? I like Vivek.
I like his energy.
I like his energy. He's a great.
I like how he frames everything that you can understand it if you're a 5th grader.
He's good at that. He's a really good communicator.
Yeah, and
if you wear a mask alone in your car, you could understand how Vivek speaks.
And he calls out the GOP party,
which is good.
Yeah,
good. I liked how he said Biden's not going to be the nominee, and we all know this, and he's not the president. That was hilarious.
He's not. Biden's not going to be the nominee. I guarantee you, it's Gavin Newsom.
It's going to be Newsom.
He's doing a shadow campaign. I mean, he literally went to go talk to
Gavin Newsom is I think that they want to put Trump on. They're tricking us with these fake. Do you think the New York Times polls about Trump beating Biden by 10 points is real?
No.
I think it's bullshit.
I think it's bullshit to get people hyped up about Trump, and then Trump's going to get freaking thrown in jail. I think he's going to lose one of the court cases. I don't think he's going to lose all of them. I think he's going to lose one of them. He's going to end up in jail.
I don't think he's going to end up in jail. I just think they're going to be certain rules about not letting him campaign, or they're going to try to limit his ballot access, or even if they don't, like, these indictments are not the average everyday, like, normal swing voter is going to get turned off by these indictments.
Oh yeah. And the swing voters are the ones that really control who wins the presidency.
And not only that, but like the MAGA crowd doubling and tripling down in the way in which they're communicating right now. This isn't 2016. This is like going to a frat party, and not leaving the party even though it's 4 a.m. and you're falling all over yourself and you're fucking drunk and you're covered in vomit. This is what it's kind of becoming. I hate saying this.
Same with the DeSantis crowd. They're getting so vicious on social media.
No, I don't think they're that bad, though. I don't think they're as bad as the Trump guys.
Oh, no, Trump guys are real bad. DeSantis is probably about 30%. Their crowd is about 30% of what the Trump crowd is at. And instead of attacking the GOP party, they're attacking
each other,
the voters.
I think some of the DeSantis guys are cool. I like this guy. There's a guy named Chris Nelson who I like a lot. There's a few of the DeSantis guys I'll send my stuff to once in a while. You know, when I went and trolled the council as the hardcore MAGA Trump supporter, they all thought that was funny.
All your stuff's funny.
It is funny.
I love it. I love every single one is almost going viral every single time now because people know who you are.
Yeah. I have to actually make some more videos. I'm a little upset because I've been this whole the crisis in the Middle East, and it's been busy with work and everything like that, and you know other matters. I've not been as busy as I would like, and that's been giving me some anxiety. But we're gonna get back at it hopefully next week with the stuff, and you know Pedicab is gonna die down a little now that it's getting a little colder. Obviously it's raining, so there's a lot more stuff in store. Yeah, and the material is.
I'll be getting back into politics down the road once the farm's up and running.
Yeah. You know what? I want to talk about Vivek though, because I like everything he says. I agree with. I like a lot of what he's got to say, right? But there's two things, right? When he was the CEO of like the Axelvant pharmaceutical company, he basically used his company as a pump and dump. Have you heard about that?
No.
You should learn about his pharma company. But he basically like lied about test trials, manipulated data, got his stock to shoot up to like $150 a share, and then it crashed to zero.
Sounds like most companies nowadays, though.
But he it was just totally on false data. Like he literally ran it was almost like not a Ponzi scheme, but he ran a pump and dump through a publicly traded company.
And if that's accurate, he should face charges. I don't think anybody should get away with that.
It's pretty bad. It's really bad, right? But even if I'm misinformed, right, and I don't have all the facts of that, you know, you have a guy on stage who's saying everything that who I like everything he says. I agree with everything he says. Everything he says, I'm like, dude, that guy's spot on. This guy's so good. You know, and what I've learned, especially when you're dealing with like politicians, is that if you are agreeing with everything that person on stage is telling you,
you're probably being manipulated.
You're getting played, and that's how I kind of feel about Vivek.
He kind of reminds me of another Obama.
He does remind you of another Obama, right?
Yeah. So like, I don't trust any politician, but I do like Vivek. And so
I like him, and he's also like shown support for Owen Schroyer, and he went on Alex Stein's show, and he seems cool. Like he'd be a fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, he'd be one of those politicians that I would actually want to hang out with.
Yeah, dude. Even Chris Christie, I'd go to a bar with Chris Christie. I just don't want him governing me, but he seems like a fun guy to talk to.
Oh, he's probably hilarious. Yeah, but he's a horrible leader. Horrible leader, but he seems like a really fun guy to have a beer with. It's like
you can learn a lot. You can probably learn a lot talking about like the economy and different things, right? But dude, I would not want that guy representing me as a leader at all.
No. And I like Tim Scott too, but he's not presidential material.
He's kind of goofy.
He's goofy, but he's great goofy because he's a great leader in Congress.
He's an empty suit, dude. I feel like he just repeats the talking points and does what the donors tell him.
To a point. I mean, he's voted for a lot of things that I like when he's in Congress.
Yeah, well, did he voted when he knew that nothing was going to happen? It didn't matter, and it was like, all right, go vote so you have a good voting record.
Basically.
In 2020, when you vote for a bunch of stuff that you like in 2021, that doesn't matter because it's not going to go anywhere. No. It means nothing. Like Ted Cruz was like really loud and vocal in 2021, and he hasn't done anything that, you know. So it's It's all a big show. I like Vivek. I think that I do like Vivek a lot. I hope that if this either Trump or DeSantis offers him some kind of a cabinet position, because I think he has value.
I think he'd be a great chief of staff.
He'd be a good, yeah.
Because
I hope he gets
have his ear
to everything, to
the
everything.
president,
Everything.
and he'd be able to direct him because
he'd be
Vivek
good.
is very, very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of energy, and he will call people out.
Yeah, right away. He would be a good press person. He'd be really good to do press all the time. He'd be great for doing press. I don't like the anti-Vivek sentiment from the DeSantis campaign. There's no need. He's great. Like, he should get a job, no matter who gets a nominee. He should get a job as on that staff. And also, I hope he continues to, be involved, and maybe in like 2028 or in the 2030s, he'd be a really good leader. But for right now, it's just like you got to earn trust. And one last thing before we go, you got this group of unelected globalists that are using crisis after crisis to create a new world order for argument.
Next is the water crisis.
Water crisis, and you have this war in the Middle East, which is going to create a whole ton of crises. And here's the other problem too, and it's that while everyone's dividing and arguing over Israel and Palestine, it's going to fragment our community. And I'm noticing that because of my stances on Israel and other things, that what happens when the next virus, the next crisis comes in, we're not going to be as united to resist the oncoming tyranny. So that actually is a concern. And you want to address those concerns with people who disagree with you and do it in a way that's civil and polite. Unfortunately, people aren't really being very civil and polite with you, which is unfortunate.
Civility's gone up.
Even when they agree with you on everything else, the civility is gone. So that's unfortunate, but that's okay. It is what it is. But anyway, the point is, crisis after crisis, it's being used to bring about these changes that none of us really want. And manipulate consent, and you need
people to phase out.
Yeah,
because when you have crisis after crisis,
people
just like they just tone out. They're like, I'm done.
Yeah, well, guess what? BLM and Antifa and the activists for the New World Order are not toning out, and that's why it's so dangerous. You got to still stay involved, even though it's hard. But you need a leader who's good at disaster management, and the only person who's shown effective disaster management, in my opinion, has been Ron DeSantis.
Oh, yeah, he's been great in Florida. When that hurricane hit and he had the bridges back up and going and the power going, he did that quick.
Yeah, and that's why I don't care, man. Like I'll voice my support for DeSantis over Trump any day of the week, even if it means I'm disagreeing with some of my friends, even if it means less people want me on their podcast, even if it means you might not get invited to perform at certain events or whatever it is with the songs. Like, I don't care. I'm doing this because I want to live in the United States, right?
You're standing for your values, and when you stand for your values, you're willing to lose money.
Yes, exactly. And that's where I'm at. I'm very happy driving this tricycle around, no matter what happens.
And I'm happy farming.
Yeah, so that's, and you need to have that other thing that genuinely makes you happy outside of making content in order to be able to do this in a way that's long-lasting and sustainable. Anyway, Clint, how do we get a hold of you?
So you can follow me on my backup account while I'm appealing my permanent suspension for I don't know what reason. Clint Rarey on Twitter. We also have our farm Twitter. It's FAFO Farms TX, so that's FAFO Farms, FARMS TX. And we're also on Facebook. Every social media platform basically is FAFO Farms TX.
All right, excellent. Clint, so excited. You got Instagram?
Yeah, FAFO Farms TX.
Excellent. All right. Clint, thank you so much for coming on. We made the best of the situation, and then ultimately you got to always improvise and always be creative to figure out a way to get stuff done. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.